Good evening. I'm New York City Council member Brad Lander, and it's my pleasure to welcome everyone to the second big community planning meeting of the Bridging Gowanus community planning process. So thank you very much for being here. Let's say thank you to the Wyckoff Tenants Association and the Wyckoff Gardens Community Center. It's very nice to be in their space. We will say a few more thank yous a little later to the folks who did all the work to put this meeting together, to Pratt, to the folks who worked in some small working groups to develop the posters that you've seen. But we want to say some quick words of welcome, and then we're going to hear short pitches about each of these. I'll kind of talk a little about where these creative ideas came from and where we're going in the process, and explain what's going to happen tonight. But before we do that, it's my great honor to introduce really the leading champion of making the Gowanus a clean place and thinking about it in a way that's sustainable, that's mixed use, and that reflects the values of the community. Somebody who's been doing that long before it was hip and you could play shuffleboard there, who has really been a great champion for the community and who's one of the founding partners in organizing the Bridging Gowanus process. Please join me in welcoming our Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez.
Thank you, Brad, and thank you for your leadership in taking on this very important community planning process. I am so excited to see so many people here, local stakeholders, residents, businesses. It's just great. Let me just take this opportunity to thank the Community Advisory Group, to EPA, and all the local individual organizations that have been so actively working on this. And I am really thrilled to see that many people come here because you know that, yes, we're going to have a Gowanus Canal that is going to be clean, that is going to be a jewel of pride for our community. But now our challenge is, how could we guarantee and ensure that we're going to have a Gowanus area, that the future of the Gowanus area to be one that is sustainable? And the only way that that will happen is by bringing all of you together to try to reach a consensus. And I just want to alert you that we have been involved in this type of community planning process before. It's hard, it's difficult, it's painful, but it's doable because we owe it to our children and future generations. So I look forward to the day that we can come up with a final plan where everyone is proud of its product, and that we feel that we provided a mechanism for everyone in the community to express your views. And this is what is really important, that we give you an opportunity to bring to this process what you think should happen in this area, because after all, we are here for you. Thank you so very much for all the efforts and all the work that you have done. And let me thank Catherine Zinel. Great job that you've done. And Dan Wiley from my office, I know that you worked so hard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman, and thanks again for your great leadership on Gowanus and so many other things. So the Congresswoman mentioned the Community Advisory Group for the EPA Superfund process, and we have a flyer, yes, with some more information. They would like to invite people to join them in their process, and that helps me just explain again for those of you who aren't familiar. As you know, the EPA a couple of years ago designated the canal a Superfund site, and it is therefore, there's a plan that has been developed, and there's been a lot of public outreach on for the cleanup of the canal under the EPA's supervision through the Superfund. And that has a community advisory group, the CAG, or Community Advisory Group, that has met many, many times. Actually, if CAG members in the room, go ahead and raise your hand. Thank you to the CAG members. You can talk to one of these people or get the flyer. They would love to have you in the meetings that they have talking about the cleanup and related issues to cleanup. What we then wanted to do, seeing that that process is so well underway and that we can imagine a clean canal, is bring people together to talk about the future land uses, infrastructure, planning around the canal to build on the canals becoming clean. And that is a process that involves the city planning, zoning, but also state and federal investments in infrastructure, but is separate from, related to, but separate from the cleanup of the canal itself. So just join the CAG, go join one of the next CAG meetings and learn more about the cleanup if you're especially interested in that. I also want to note that this process, Bridging Gowanus, was organized originally or convened by elected officials, including the Congresswoman, myself, Councilmember Steve Levin, Assemblywoman Joan Millman, and State Senator Velma Montgomery, and we've all worked together. We've collaborated and been in touch with the CAG, with Community Board 6. It's nice to see the chair of Community Board 6, Danny Coomer, here. And we are moving through a process that you'll hear a little more later, so I don't want to spend too much time on it now, but we started bringing stakeholders together last summer. In the fall, we had a first big community planning meeting that many of you were at, where we talked about some shared values for the canal that you'll see. There was a lot of consensus around those values. We then broke down into 4 working groups, and those working groups came up with creative ideas for things that would help advance the values. And that's what you've seen walking around tonight, and we're going to hear from each of them in just a minute, just 60 seconds, on what that idea is. And then you'll have and then we're going to move from sort of the second phase. First phase was figuring out if we've got consensus around shared values. Second phase, exploring some of these creative ideas. And then we will start moving tonight into the third phase, where we really grapple with some of the harder issues of development and uses and density. And we'll do that beginning tonight, but also over the next several meetings. There'll be some additional public workshops to learn, kind of culminating in a final meeting later this spring. So that is where we are. But what I want to do now is invite sort of a representative from each of the ideas that, if you got a chance to get here early and see, you already saw. They are almost all volunteers, people who joined these small working groups and have spent a lot of hours as volunteers over the last couple of months pulling together these ideas. So we have, I think, 8 or 9 of them, culminating in a very exciting first opportunity to comment, but we'll save that for last. So we're just going to start in the order. I think that they were up around here, and I don't know, Catherine, do people need to come up here? Oh, I see. All right, we're going to... All right, very good. So first up, we're going to invite Ariel Krasnow to come up and talk about the mixed-use buildings and mixed-use zone creative idea.
The Gowanus is a naturally occurring mixed-use area, and it has, as everyone knows, and as most people enjoy, residential, industrial, manufacturing, and open space. One of the things it does not have is any security in maintaining this, and that's what a lot of people, particularly in our group of Enhancing Mixed Use, wanted to see. So there are a number of ways of doing this. One could possibly be within a single building to ensure that. One could be throughout the district. But currently, there is nothing at city planning that would ensure the kind of mixed use that people seem to want to see there. And I think this approach ties in very closely with the larger manufacturing district, with the arts district, with the open space. It feeds into all of them.
Thank you. All right. So the second big creative idea related to environmental sustainability and a sustainable canal is to make sure we do a good, thorough hydrology study that attends to flooding issues. Let me ask Warren Cohn to come up and give us 60 seconds on that.
Thanks so much. My name is Warren Cohen. I live about 10 blocks down on First Street, and I think the hydrology study is an interesting part of this process because there's so many great ideas. It's been so inspiring to hear a lot of the visions we have for the Gowanus. but unfortunately, Mother Nature is somewhat going to dictate what we're able to accomplish here. You know, we live in a very environmentally sensitive area on the Gowanus, making it a little bit more exciting and challenging than other places. We have obviously the canal and the pollution in the canal and the biological hazards in the canal as we're facing sea level rises of 3 to 5 feet by the end of the century. But even worse is the problem that the rainfall, which is getting exacerbated by climate change, also drains into the canal from both Park Slope and Cobble Hill and Carroll Gardens. And it's that rainfall as we start to alter, as development starts to alter, hopefully not haphazardly, but in a coordinated way, alter potentially what is able to drain into the canal, we may be left with serious problems on land where where the water impacts our areas, causing chronic flooding. I know we all wish this wasn't a case, but we know we've had 2 mandatory evacuations in the canal zone, 2 out of the last 3 years. So this has to be a paramount issue. Basically, these are great plans, but it all starts with a hydrology study to see what the land can support.
Thank you, Warren. Ariel talked about the mixed-use character of the district and preserving that. There's also some areas of the canal that are just solidly manufacturing, and one of the goals was to make sure that we preserve that. So Paul Basile is going to come talk about the Special Gowanus Manufacturing District.
I'm not a great public speaker, so I apologize if I deviate out. One of the things that we come to this group talking about are the jobs, and we know how diverse the community is, and the last thing we want to see is any of these ideas displacing the jobs or the manufacturings. We don't think there has to be a net loss in space for the manufacturing community. We think the tools are there within the city and the state that allow us to find that affordable manufacturing space and grow it within Gowanus, rather than having the manufacturers or the businesses feel the need to not only leave Gowanus, but ultimately leave the city altogether. So they have roots here, just like everyone else, the residents, the green infrastructure, everybody has these great ideas, but we can't lose the job base that we enjoy in Gowanus. It's important. A lot of us have been there for a long time. We want to see, we talk about the canal being the jewel in the crown, but manufacturing and jobs are another jewel in that crown. And we can't take that out of the crown at the expense of affordable housing or the expense of open space. It needs to be incorporated, and it needs to be incorporated wisely. It's not only this process that's going to do that. I think the city and the state can do a lot with tax incentives that are targeted directly to job training and infrastructure improvements and modernization of our facilities and our equipment. So we're here. I thank you all for having me participate, and I appreciate the time that you've all put into this, every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And Paul, for people who don't know, is the head of something called the Gowanus Alliance, which has brought together manufacturers and businesses in the Gowanus Canal area. Where there is residential development, or existing residential or new, a very important idea that came out of the shared values and the working groups was to make sure that it's affordable, that we both preserve and in new housing create affordable housing. And so Jackie Del Valle from the Fifth Avenue Committee is going to talk about that.
Thanks. Similarly to preserving what we were talking about, manufacturing, is making sure that the tenants that are living here, especially long-term tenants, seniors, are not going to be displaced. What kept coming up in the working groups is no one likes what's happening around 4th Avenue, where we've lost rent-stabilized buildings and luxury towers are going out. So wanting to make sure that there, as a way to kind of both preserve existing affordable housing and making sure that we create opportunities to build the real affordable housing, and there's a lot of discussion around defining that term, was making sure that we have what's called mandatory inclusionary zoning. That was an idea that people were very excited about, and that would mean that whenever there was a development of a substantial size, that 20% of it had to be affordable, and that wouldn't mean additional subsidies or anything to a developer, but that would be part of what had to be built there, so that we made sure that people weren't being pushed out and that there was more opportunities being created for everyone that wants to live in Gowanus now and the great Gowanus to come. We also talked about actually having a special anti-harassment district through the zoning and land use to make sure that tenants weren't pushed out and that there was additional protection for those tenants. And we talked about ways to kind of subsidize this through cross subsidies from both in terms of what it would mean to build the housing and then also to increase opportunities and the safety net for tenants to be able to keep affording what they can. And also we are in NYCHA housing. It is in a lot of need of repair. This center actually isn't normally open. They've cut funding to keep community centers open, certainly making sure that these buildings are resilient and that repair issues that existed before and after Sandy are dealt with was also something we talked about. Thanks.
Thank you, Jackie. We've talked about a lot of different kinds of infrastructure, some environmental, some physical, some social. One thing that came up over and over again was the need for more school seats. Certainly if and as there's additional residents, but even now, knowing that a lot of the schools are overcrowded. What I want to take a pause here, because the idea is to develop a school that, well, Adam Marcus is going to come talk about the super schools idea, but before Adam does that, I want to flag there's also flyers for an event. Adam's from PS 32. And they are doing an event tonight. You may have heard that there was a fire here over the weekend in which 2 young people, Yes, 38, excuse me, all right. There were 2 young people here, there was a fire and they were, had to go to the hospital, smoke inhalation. So there's a fundraiser at PS 38 for those 2 students, and you can get flyers about it in the back, and if you want to contribute, we're collecting contributions tonight, or you can follow up afterwards, and so they asked me to note that. But let me ask Adam from PS 32 to come up and talk about the super schools idea.
Hello, everybody. I was not on the volunteer committee. I think they asked me to come here because my school's picture's on the board somehow. But a couple of years ago, I became the librarian at the school. I've been at PS 32 for 11 years. Most of our students predominantly came from Gowanus houses. Now we have a mix. We have a gifted and talented program, an Asperger program. We have about a 50-50 mix. And seeing the students that are really at risk and have needs that the out-of-school factors mediate that the school cannot remediate, drove us to create this library within the school to make it as a community center within the school. So we run some program called Diapers to Dormitories for the infant, toddler, and preschool siblings of all of our students to get them ready for school. We give them free books, laptop computers. So we're trying to make it more than just a school library for the students of our school. We have a lot of family events, and it still isn't reaching the students and the families that need it. So I approached my principal with this idea to move our library to the Gowanus Community Center. And I reached out to Edward Tyree, who's here, who's the Resident Association president, and we started working together. It turns out that the residents have been working with Fury, Families United for Racial and Economic Equality, for over a year because the community center's been closed for 10 years. So we can't do our project and get it to the school. So we're working right now with them to try and reopen the center so we can offer families lots of literacy programs, even make it into a yoga studio some days, an art studio some days, have mindfulness in the schools, chess in the schools, all these great organizations that really need to be brought to the families. I didn't time myself for 60 seconds, so I just had, that's about it? Yes. Okay. All right, if you want more, adam.marcus@ps32.org. Thanks, Brett.
And the idea here, thank you, Adam, is that we need more of that there need to be more school seats. There needs to be at least a new school in the Gowanus area that builds on these same principles of community outreach that isn't just in its walls, but that is both providing school seats and reaching out and partnering in the community. Another form of infrastructure that came up a lot whenever you talk about public transit around the Gowanus, the first thing people say over and over again is, bring back our bus. And the great champion of that bus has been Assemblywoman Joan Millman, and Chloe Rivera is going to come talk about it. So.
Thank you. Hi. In 2010, MTA service cuts included the elimination of the B71 bus line along Union Street, leaving residents of neighborhoods surrounding the Gowanus Canal, including Columbia Street Waterfront District, Carroll Gardens, Gowanus, and Park Slope, without an easily accessible way to make connections. The B71 provided safe and reliable transportation for residents and seniors, including students and seniors, easy access to major Brooklyn cultural institutions such as the Brooklyn Public Library, the Brooklyn Museum, and the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, as well as across-town transportation for students going to school, as well as seniors going to doctor appointments. The elimination has meant that it can now take 2 to 3 buses and twice the amount of time to travel to the same places. And so we urge the MTA as part of the transportation plan for the Gowanus to restore the B71 in an effort to bridge the neighborhoods surrounding the Gowanus Canal.
Thank you, Chloe, and thanks to the Assemblywoman for her great leadership on this issue. I mentioned before the Superfund, which is the federally funded cleanup of the canal. There's a lot of other elements of cleanup, though, that are needed, of the upland sites that involve city and state and federal government. And there's a desire not only to coordinate that, but make sure the jobs are available to local residents, which has been a real cause of the Congresswoman. And so Dan Wiley is going to come up and talk about that.
Thanks. I'm actually pinch hitting for Josh, who coordinated the thing. I happen to facilitate the cultural one, so I just wanted to add to the very good super school that school would also be multi-use, mixed-use, community space, and business development. So that would be a multi. But the multi of cleanup entails, as Brad was saying, the Superfund site. Obviously there's dredging, there's a tank that needs to be built somewhere to hold CSOs. Under the state DEC, there's manufactured gas plants and scary brownfields that need to be cleaned up. There's also ways of reducing combined sewer overflow with the flushing tunnel, the green infrastructure, and also, let's not forget Sandy and coastal protections, because the governor is dropping $200 million of our federal money for flood protections for Red Hook and hopefully Gowanus, if we convince him that half of Red Hook is actually at Gowanus, off the record. No, that's geography. So there's an opportunity here for jobs and workforce development. The challenges are also job opportunities, and we should have, like organizations like Brooklyn Workforce Innovations and Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow, have a comprehensive program of training and placement, and I know that EPA has also a training program, so we want to see more of that for the Gowanus. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Dan. All right, 2 more ideas, and then, so we got, he said tanks. I think he said tanks. Okay, 2 more of these innovative ideas that come out of the working group. Obviously, open space is a big issue, and a network of greenscape that enables people to move both along the canal and near the canal is what Ben Jones is going to come present. All right, Ben. This one needs the picture, too. I'm going to find the picture and hold it up.
I think it's right here. Hey, everyone. When I first started getting involved in the Gowanus, actually, there was a fellow board member of mine that is older and much wiser than I am. And his pitch was basically to everyone that we got to convince people to understand that the Gowanus is yours. It's your canal. And you have to cherish it as a resource and as a place to enjoy. It's a gift. And I think one of the big things in terms of getting there is making sure that we make it accessible for people to work, live, play, enjoy the banks, creating green space and open space along the shores, having them connected to bike paths, to bridges, to walkways, and basically having a network there that's sustainable, that is reinforced with green infrastructure, bioswales, rain gardens, to make sure that this gift that we have is going to endure and can be shared for us.
So I personally found all these ideas very exciting, but I'm especially excited about the one that we're presenting last tonight, not because it's more important than the others, but because a new opportunity to hear something for the first time is being presented. One of the values people have been talking about for a long time is preserving and strengthening the space of artists. We've been joined by Councilmember Steve Levin. Thank you, Steve, whose district we're in here at the Wyckoff Community Center. Is to preserve and strengthen space for arts. And we know how often in an area like this, artists come, create energy and creativity, and then before too long wind up getting pushed out themselves. So there's Arts Gowanus and Abby Subak's great work, and people have been talking about how we can preserve and hold space for arts. And then lo and behold, after we had started this process, word came that a philanthropist had purchased the BRT power substation, affectionately known as the Bat Cave, with the intention of creating a space for arts in our community. And I'm very pleased that's been in the paper a little bit, that it was sort of working its way through. But we have tonight the first opportunity to hear a little bit and give a little bit of feedback to them. And so I am very pleased to ask both Abby Subak and Maureen Connolly from the Arts Gowanus group and the BRT power substation. So, Maureen, yeah? Sure. So, and,
I'm also pitch hitting tonight for our arts consultant who, I'm not going to read his wonderful statement, but make a couple of announcements. As the councilman said, the Bat Cave has been renamed the Powerhouse Workshop. We intend to make it into a permanent home for the arts in the Gowanus community. Number two, we have received approval from the state DEC for our environmental remediation plan, and following that process, we will engage in a green redevelopment of this 80,000 square foot building, which we hope will open in either 2016, 2017. I'd like to cut to the chase and say, these are some of the programs we're considering. We'd like feedback from the community, your ideas about programming for this facility. Workspace and stipends for emerging and established artists, workshops for wood, metal, stone, and print work, collaborative spaces for artists, apprenticeships and vocational education, after-school programs for middle and high school students, and community outreach programs, music, performances, events, film screenings, and more, artist talks and salons, as well as publications and art history, the canteen, a restaurant open to artists, visitors, and the community alike, and an outdoor art garden for all to enjoy with well-designed access to the waterfront. Next week, our website is going to launch. It would be called brtpowerhouse.org. We will have a section, we hope you visit our website. There will be a section for public comment and suggestion about programming of this facility. So we look forward to hearing your ideas and to moving forward working with you. Thank you.
So, and let's just say it's, oh, go ahead, Abby.
Let me take that.
Yes, please.
So I want to thank Maureen and the representatives from the Powerhouse for coming out, because I think it's been a really big question in everybody's mind and a lot of curiosity about what's going to happen. So it's exciting, and I welcome them here. I'm Abby Subak from Arts Gowanus. And one of the things I want to do is take a step back to the bigger picture. I think on our poster it was distracting to have two particular buildings identified. What we're talking about really is Gowanus as a whole neighborhood and how we can protect and keep artists here. I think it's been in our culture in New York City and Brooklyn, across the country, this assumption, both by everybody, artists and lay people, everybody's an artist really, that you have these communities, artists move in, they become more desirable, prices go up, artists are pushed out. And I think this Bridging Gowanus process is really the opportunity to step back and find ways that we can keep the artists here in Gowanus. And working with a lot of artists, I think everybody's been really heartened by the support that we've gotten from the community throughout this process, really wanting to keep artists. So there's two key things for artists: affordability and stability. And one of the big ideas that came out of the working groups was this idea of art centers. And that doesn't necessarily mean just one building that's the center of the arts community in Gowanus. It can mean, we are thinking in terms of brick and mortar and what can happen. It could be portions of buildings, it could be a set of buildings throughout the whole neighborhood, working to support the makers and the studio spaces and the artists and the community. So I think in my mind, there are some important distinctions as we move forward and are looking at particular policies that are going to support this. And I think we need to think through carefully both renting, because a lot of people are going to instantly say artists need to own their own spaces, and I think that is important, but we also need to have affordable rents for artists who are not able to own their own spaces. So both renting and owning spaces. And then the other distinction that we need to be careful about is not just arts overall, but making sure we're protecting maker spaces, not only exhibition spaces. That Gowanus has a really strong history of studios and being the place where the art is made, and that's where we're going to lose artists, is if we don't protect that. I'm very excited about the exhibition spaces that are arising in Gowanus, and I think they're amazing, and we're creating some of them ourselves at Arts Gowanus. But I think it's the core of what we're talking about is about studio spaces and maker spaces. So I'd love to talk more about it, and thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Abby. And as I mentioned before, Abby has helped kind of really take Arts Gowanus to the next level. So if you're an artist or interested in the arts in Gowanus, get to know her. And again, I really want to thank the BRT Power Station team. It's not all that often that a philanthropist comes along and buys a site where people assumed a great building would get knocked down and replaced by development and propose to do something the community really, really wants, but might not otherwise be able to make happen in the marketplace, and come out and say, tell us what you'd like to see. So thank you guys for doing that. We're very excited about it. And go to brtpowerhouse.org to give your ideas, and there'll be more opportunities for people to have feedback. As you heard, that's a long-term idea. So many of you got to see those ideas, give feedback, write things down on the posters, and do dot voting beforehand. And there will also be some opportunities when we have small group discussion after the presentation. And we'll also put them all up on the website at bridginggowanus.org. This is still evolving. There were many other ideas that came up in the working groups. We're just trying to kind of get them out there, get feedback, and show them. So let me ask everyone who participated in the working groups that helped develop these ideas just to raise your hands, because a lot of work went into them. Let's say a big thank you to all of these people. As I mentioned at the beginning, the Bridging Gowanus process, the planning group that has been helping us move through it is the Pratt Center for Community Development. And Elena Conti from the Pratt Center is now going to take us from this second phase of the process, looking at these innovative ideas, into the third phase with conversations about some things she'll tell you about. So please join me in welcoming the Pratt Center's Elena Conti.
Good evening, everyone. It is my extreme pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for your participation this evening. We are very shortly about to break into our tables, and I can't help but notice that there are still a lot of people who are not at their proper table. So please go to your proper table, and if you are not sitting comfortably around a table such that you could sit and eat a meal on it, I would kindly ask you now to redistribute yourself to these middle tables. Bring your chair, right? We really want to have a good, productive conversation, and we need to be well distributed to do so. Thanks in advance for your cooperation, especially the groups that are crowded external to tables without looking comfortable. Please get comfortable. Much of what is in this presentation was touched upon by Brad, Councilmember Lander. So I will move quickly through it. Welcome. These are the incredible conveners. What are we doing? We are Bridging Gowanus, attempting as a community to develop a vision, a comprehensive framework for the land use and infrastructure and policy setup that will create a safe, healthy, and vibrant community through a process that is robust and transparent, broad-based and inclusive. But really, why? That's the real question, right? We've all been a part of these processes before. We know that Gowanus has had a lot of planning. What is the point of doing it now? And I really want to emphasize this, that if you love everything about Gowanus and you don't want it to change, we need to plan. If you have major problems with Gowanus as a neighborhood and you want to correct them, we need to plan. If we do not do this plan, there are certain very clear things that are certain to happen, okay? So if we don't plan for infrastructure, we're going to jeopardize all the good work of the Superfund cleanup. Businesses and residents will continue to be vulnerable to flooding. We're going to miss opportunities for new open space and waterfront access. We're going to miss opportunities for mixed-use development. We're going to miss opportunities for sorely needed affordable housing. We're going to lose manufacturing uses, and we're going to lose good jobs if we don't plan for land use actions. That's one of the ones that fits in there, okay? We're going to continue to see more incongruent development where things don't make sense next to each other and it's not the vision of what we want for our neighborhood. We're going to see the further incursion of certain very specific uses, such as hotels and big box stores. We're going to see the displacement of existing residents and artists. We're going to see the lack of integration of city services that accommodate changes, because changes are coming whether we may do a plan or not, and we need to see things accommodated. And finally, and this maybe in my opinion might be the worst, but if we don't plan together, we're going to create a neighborhood that leaves the most vulnerable amongst us behind or excludes them entirely. And that's not what New York is about, and that's not our vision of democracy. So that is all to say that your time this evening planning together with us is very well spent, and we thank you for it. Quickly, we did a lot of this already, just where we've been and where we're going. We commenced in August with a planning meeting. We had small group intensive interviews, had a large community meeting where we discussed shared values in December, the intensive working group process that we just heard a tremendous amount about, and now we're at the second large community meeting. We'll talk about what's coming next. Just want to speak from the process perspective, just how robust participation has been and is going to need to continue to be. This is just partway through, so we need to keep up this level of activity. Please engage your neighbors, but it's been overwhelming thus far, and there's a lot to be proud of there. At last meeting, we discussed the shared values extensively. There were 7, and the major activity was to refine them. They have been refined. They are available on your table, and they will shortly be available on the web, that incorporates feedback into the existing 7 that were there. And we included a new one based on what we heard very clearly, which is that providing quality jobs through the existing initiatives in the community and the new initiatives that may be coming through are a top priority. We discussed this at length. Where are we going next? We're going to explain the exercise that we're going to do at the tables in a moment, and following that are the workshops that are co-branded by Bridging Gowanus and local partners on topics like affordable housing and zoning, and there'll be more, and we'll make sure that you know about them. There'll be another large community meeting. We will take all of this input throughout, present a draft in June, incorporate your feedback on that, and then we will have this framework thereafter. Go to the web, send your friends to the web, go to the workshops, please. We already heard that the Community Advisory Group for the Superfund is an extremely important local related body that's working very hard. Their next meeting is on Tuesday night. You are invited, March 25th. We also wish to make you aware that there is a proposal to list a Gowanus Canal Historic District on the state and national registers of historic places that is currently under review. And if you have a pen, and we can leave this slide up there, we advise you to go to the official site where that application is listed, and there is a contact person of the state that's reviewing it that can tell you what you need to know about it. The URL is up here. And in case you didn't know, there's such a thing called the Brownfield Opportunity Area Program, which is a state program that seeks to look at areas that have been deeply impacted by historic contamination and to do local economic development planning. A tremendous amount of work has been led by Star Whitehouse on it for the Friends of Community Board 6. And there's an immense amount of work that has been done. you're going to get a final, we think, in April, so we wish for you to look out for it and are previewing it now. So what are we doing? Okay. Pay attention. If you haven't gone to your table, I know you are going to go immediately when this concludes, right? Tonight, for the next hour, we are going to be looking at uses in the Gowanus neighborhood. The uses that we would like to see in the future. You have at your table tools that show you what uses are currently there, as well as some information about previous recommendations. And what we want to hear from you is what your vision is. And this map shows the 3 areas that have no special significance. They're simply a way to divide the conversation tonight. 1, 2, and 3 are what your facilitator will lead you through with a series of questions that asks you what you want to see there. It's going to be very fun. As context, I wish to offer you a reminder that there has been some historic thinking by the City Department of Planning in this area. You can take this with a grain of salt, or you can specifically respond to what you think about it. But back in 2008 and 2009, this is a simplified version of what the city was proposing for this area. And in the green areas, which are labeled C, D, and E, they propose to maintain manufacturing uses, but without any additional incentives, any additional protections, or any additional supports to support those businesses to thrive, but they did want those uses to be maintained there. In areas A and B, which are substantial, significant portions abutting the canal, the city at that time was contemplating that it would be appropriate to allow as-of-right housing for up to 100% of the land use in this area with no provisions for the affordability of that housing. It also would allow manufacturing uses there should the market allow for manufacturing uses to coexist with an as-of-right ability to develop residential housing. So this is there just as context. The name of the game in what we're about to do is to answer the question of what you want to see where in your neighborhood. And just the final notes of guidance about this is that we're not talking about zoning. You don't have to be an expert. Just tell us what types of things you want where. Please respect your neighbors, so that means step back if you're talking too much, and step up if you're feeling shy or not confident. Your opinion is very much valued. Our shared values as a Bridging Gowanus planning group embrace the fact that we need sufficient infrastructure for existing uses and new uses. That is an assumption, and it is what this plan framework will contain. So when you have your conversation about uses, don't be concerned about infrastructure. Assume that it is there to support whatever uses you think should go where. We talk at the tables about stable mixed use. That's a balance that by definition, in contrast to what I mentioned in the city, will be a balanced mixed use as opposed to having it be threatened to tip one way all the way or the other. Try not to focus on recently created or proposed uses. They have their own processes. This is about the future and a neighborhood-wide scale. We know the land use map is not perfect. Don't get hung up on it. It's a guiding tool. Have an excellent time. Please go to your table. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. If I could have your attention, please. Everybody, I'm Councilmember Steve Levin. I want to welcome you all to Wyckoff Gardens. I want to thank our host, Wyckoff Gardens Resident Association President Charlene Nimmons. If Charlene is still here, Charlene, thank you very much for hosting us tonight. We want to ask you all to wrap up because we're going to go back into the discussion on next steps. I want to thank you again for coming out tonight, for coming to the previous sessions. This is very inspiring and very heartening to see everybody here now on the third big meeting in this process. We have, over 150 people here tonight. That means that you are all invested. That means the community is invested. But I want to make sure that you know that you're an integral part of this process, as I'm sure you're aware. But please make sure that you're encouraging your neighbors and your friends and your spouses and everybody else and your children to participate, because it's really important. And I'm going to turn it back over to Elena Conti from Pratt Center. She's going to discuss next steps. But again, I want to thank you all for coming out and participating. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would love to make this incredible announcement about the upcoming workshops. This stuff is so fun, we can't get enough of it. So on Thursday, April 10th at 6:30 is the first one that is co-sponsored by Fifth Avenue Committee and Bridging Gowanus. It is all about demystifying affordable housing. Not to be missed. Such a complicated topic. That word, what does it mean? Come on the 10th to find out. On Wednesday, April 23rd at 6:30 p.m., there is the Gowanus Environmental Cleanup. This is really hard to follow. There's all these different things happening. I need an overview. Explain it to me in one place. Aha, I can go Wednesday the 23rd for that one. And then the next one, Tuesday. Look at this. How nice. A Thursday, a Wednesday, and a Tuesday. So any night of the week that you have a permanent commitment, there's no excuse. You can make one of these. Tuesday the 29th, Understanding Zoning, all right? These are going to be incredible content meetings that are going to help us be smarter and better and sharper at the next big meeting that's happening in May. I want to thank everyone tremendously, and I also want to acknowledge that we really do feel very deeply for the fact that there was this fire that has kept a lot of people away from participating tonight in this, and we are ready and available to come back to Wyckoff to do a special workshop with residents in a way that is easy for them. So let's coordinate on that and make it happen. We are serious about this process, and we are serious about you all, and serious about you having a wonderful evening and getting home safe. And I would like to turn the mic over here.
I just want to say I attended a FEMA meeting this morning at EPA. Anyone whose home is vulnerable and has issues about insurance, please come and see me at this table in the next few minutes. I have a FEMA website that's just come up where you can look at your property and the new laws that are coming into effect.
Thank you so much for that important announcement. This is all tied to resiliency. And just one more reminder, again, we talked about a lot of meetings. Don't forget the CAG on Tuesday night, the 25th. So much good stuff to do, and now the weather is warm enough and there's enough light to do it, so enjoy. Thank you again.
There were a lot of people that had to put tonight together, so if you facilitated a table, please raise your hands. Thank you guys very much. Mostly, I think, Pratt planning students. To Elena Conti and Paula Crespo and Vicki Weiner from Pratt, thank you for facilitating us. To Catherine Zinell, my district director and deputy chief of staff, who did a lot of the organizing work, and Dan Wiley from Congresswoman Velasquez's office, again to Charlene Nimmons and the Wyckoff Residents Association. Who else am I forgetting to thank? All right. And thank you guys all for coming. Have a good night.